what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby, representing Team Kings of Games. And you guys, I'm gonna be talking about the future of the game. So let me get out of this. Alright, there we go. So what I mean is, like, it's changing a lot, like really fast paced. Konami's continuing to release like more and more support, some generic, some for archetypes, new decks, new archetypes, new support for old archetypes, new staples that are generic. You know, like just new mechanics. Just so much is happening so fast. Like the year 2020 has just been like a lot has happened in a small time frame. Like a lot has changed, you know, in real life, in the game, just etc. Man, like it's just, there's so much. So what I want to do is showcase you guys. I'm gonna give you guys a kind of a glimpse of the future, what it's looking like, because people only talk about 1 or 2 decks, but with the new sets like Phantom Rage, and I couldn't cover I literally could not cover everything. There was just not enough space. I wanted to get at least a couple cards to show each archetype. With new sets like Phantom Rage, you know, Eternity Code, Rise of the Duelist, you know, recent sets like Dual Overload releasing Link monsters like Haku Fibrax, and you know, like Union Carrier, Link Cross is released, you know, the Mecha Phantom Beast, Link monster, just all these different generic cards that are basically being integrated into strategies to raise their ceiling, basically bump them up basically by an entirety of nearly 2 tiers, going from like tier 3 to tier 1 or tier 2 to tier 1, some from tier 2 to like tier 0.5, dang near like borderline broken, to the point like where it's like, dude, you have to, like, you either address these on the ban list or people have to side very heavy for these decks. I don't think that everything has to be banned. I don't really feel like the ban list is like, for me, I don't know, it's just different for me. Some people complain saying this has to be banned. For me, I don't care. I just adapt. But as you guys see, just looking at this card pool, this is a lot to adapt for. So what I'm talking about is the future of the game. So these are the best decks. Some of them are the best decks right now, but in the future, this is what it's gonna look like. If none of this gets addressed on the ban list, you guys are looking at a format that's going to be a wild card format where you will not be able to side deck appropriately for every matchup. So you're going to have to put equalizers and haymakers that are generically applicable so that you can be prepared for anything. So I'm going to be talking about all the decks. I can't go in depth on every single one because you guys see there's, I think, like over 10 archetypes minimum. There's probably like 15 archetypes right here that are all extremely powerful. All of them are minimum, I would say minimum tier 1.5, borderline tier 1. Some of them you may consider tier 2, but you haven't tested them and you haven't seen what they do. Other people understand, like for example, you can't say Infernoble Knights. Well, people would say in the comments, like for example, oh, you can't say Infernoble Knights are tier 1 because they just came out. But it's like, bro, we already know what this deck does. We know what it's going to do. People have been testing this deck before the cards came out in real life online, already showing how strong this deck is in the online format and stuff like that. So yeah, you guys, like, this is gonna be a lot. There's some new staples that really changed. Just the whole game in its entirety is so different. In fact, the only one, or there's only like 2 decks out of, or maybe 3 decks out of this entire pool. You know what, there's like 4 or 5 that are kind of old, but really, like, there's one that stayed meta relevant for an extremely long time. The other ones kind of flip-flopped and they've been here and there. But a lot of these are new, like newer archetypes. So this is how much the game has changed, that the old formats, the old meta, they're out. All the decks that were super powerful, Sky Striker, Orcus, Thunder Dragons, are kind of like shells of their former selves. Lunarlight's been addressed, Spiral's been addressed, Shaddolls fell out of favor, and now all these new decks took over. So I'm going to start off with right here in the first card pool, well, in the first little pile, I put 3 cards to symbolize Eldritch. Eldritch doesn't have any extra deck cards, but I'll just talk about Eldritch just for a moment. So Eldritch is a deck you guys need to be on the lookout for, not only because it's a deck, but also because it's a splashable tier 1 engine. It has an extremely good residual and durable engine. It's able to put up, you know, multiple interruptions, even if they're like 1-for-1 interactions, basically a non-targeting Dryden, a DD Crow, and an Omni Negate counter trap are nothing to laugh at. Plus the grind game that this deck provides. Self-replacing engine. Golden Lord is a really strong card. It's a spot removal going second. This is why people need to prioritize keeping Arc Light up, so your board's not just getting like picked apart off one Golden, because one Golden Lord baits like 2 interruptions by itself, and like this card just, he makes the deck. You know, Curse LN is just amazing. Like this dude I started watching recently, Pay 8 feel great. Like this card is just really insane, you guys. It kind of can carry the deck for the rest of the duel. So this deck is like really strong, and just opening one of the Eldritch spells or traps can carry your deck, where they'll just start recurring themselves and floating, and you'll eventually top deck it to a second, and you'll start getting your Lord Loops with your Sanguines, with your Whites, with your Wakeros, with your Conquistadors. This deck has a searchable Omni-Negate counter trap that you don't have to play only one of. The deck is extremely splashable. You can play Numeron Eldritch, Synchro Eldritch, you could play, heck, Burning Abyss Eldritch, Dragoon the Red Eyes Turbo Eldritch, Invoked Eldritch. I mean, goodness gracious, you could probably play Madoje Eldritch for all we know. Like, I mean, it's so splashable. I know the engine is pretty big, it's not compact like Invoked would be. Invoked naturally takes like 9 cards out of your deck in your main, but this is going to require a couple Golden Lords, 3 Sanguines mandatory, you know, at least 2 of each Wakeros, Conquistadors, and then 3 Curse. So it's a fat engine, but a lot of decks are able to find room for that, and still find room for their hand traps and their staples. Because there's so many variants of Eldritch, you guys, it's really hard. Like, this is, not only is it a wild card format, and I say that because even though definitively there's best decks right now, Tri-Brigade still hasn't been released. You know, Dragoonity still hasn't got the new support. A deck like Megalith has got their cards. You guys have to see what that deck does before you even say it's not like a tier 1 deck. Like, you have not even seen what Megalith can do. Like, Phantom Knights are getting their new support. Like, Zodiacs actually become meta viable with all these new cards they can play. Like, it's just a lot is changing. So, like, it's a wild card format, but also Eldritch is a wild card deck, because it's really hard to side for this deck, because you can side for the Eldritch portion of it, but it's really hard depending on whether they're playing combo, Numeron, you know, Invoked, which some of them are not as favorable as others, but just be on the lookout for this deck. You know, this is a really strong tier 1 contender. It's tried and true. It's definitely took more spotlight than Adamantipator's, which is kind of like the strongest, one of the strongest combo decks of the format. There's a couple combo decks in here that are definitely they're throwing some haymakers too, like just putting up some boards that you either have to open an insane hand for your archetype, or you have to open the haymakers like Dark Ruler, or you have to, you know, open the hand traps. So moving forward to a next contender, which is one of the newer ones. I guess I'll skip over to Adamantipator real quick before we get into the newer cards. I just put the 3 tuners and also Supplier to symbolize Adamantipator's. I should have grabbed one of their synchros, because I do have extra deck cards here for these archetypes, just to kind of just give you like a better picture of it. And this actually took a while to build this list, just to showcase you guys. So we have the 3 tuners, just showing you guys this is Adamantipator's. This is right now, because Infernoble Knights still have to kind of prove themselves, this is kind of on a tie neck to neck with Dragon Link, being the 2 really dominant combo decks of the format. Both of them are resilient in their own right, but we're talking about Adamantipator's right now. So this deck, for me personally, it's unbelievable sometimes how much this deck can play through. I mean, like, if your opponent wasn't ripping every card from your hand or locking you out of your extra deck, I wouldn't feel the need to play any hand traps in an Adamantipator deck, because this deck can just push through it. It can push through it all. I've seen this deck push through like Compulse, Fog, well, like just multiple back rows. Like, I think it was like Compulse and Fogwave, if I'm not mistaken. Like Ash, like Nibiru. Like, it can push through like 4 or 5 plus interruptions, still OTK, and end on a crazy board if it couldn't OTK. Like, this deck is really strong. It's really resilient. It's very scary too, you know, because this deck you can open with 3 hand traps and still lose. Like, it's like, you could say that's not fair, but it's like, dang, you have to put some respect on the deck. That's a good deck. Like, if you're playing a combo deck that eats hand traps for lunch and then continues to do the exact same thing that it was already going to do before you would have hand trapped it, you might as well just let them play solitaire. I mean, like, goodness gracious, the deck is really strong. I know it's not going to open insane every time, but its consistency is... It's venerable, you know, it's respectable. You know, you can whiff with this deck. It's more of a gamble than Eldritch, because these cards can whiff, but oftentimes you have contingencies like Raptite, Halqa Fabrics, combos, you know, Gallant Granite getting Block Dragon. There's just so many, you know what? I should have put Block Dragon, because this card right here just blows this deck just like to an entire new tier. So let me take out Secret real quick and put Block Dragon right there, because this card sometimes can carry the entire deck. You can have a terrible hand playing Adamant and just resolving Block Dragon, like, bro, it just, you win the duel sometimes. Like, this card is just incredible. People complain and cry saying this card just needs to be banned. I say more power to Rock decks. Let Rock decks thrive. Let them have their Block Dragon. I ain't complaining. I'm not even an Emancipator player, but I'm not complaining, because you just gotta learn to adapt, man. So that's why we're talking about how strong these decks are. I don't have enough time to talk about all their weaknesses. I'm just giving you guys a glimpse of the future format. Another card that really helps this archetype, I feel personally, is Kwakimero Supplier. I think this card is an inherent extender that you can play into this deck. It's a strong rock that you can hit off of your Adamantipator cards. It can search you a Guardian, especially if you're going second. You use your Special Analyzer, uses effects, Special Supplier, search Guardian, then you can normal summon your Guardian, you know, Special Seeker, do whatever you want, continue with your plays with protection. The fact that this searches your Kwakimaros is really strong because they do play Guardian, and also it's an extender because if a rock monster you control sends to the graveyard, you can special this card from your hand. So you can also chain block with Block Dragon in this card, send Block Dragon to the graveyard, chainlink 1 block, chainlink 2 Supplier in hand, hit a Guardian. That's insane. So Supplier actually raises the ceiling of an already tier 1 deck. So that's what I meant by some of these decks are borderline tier 0.5. Adamantipator's just absolutely can wash. I think any deck, like almost any of these decks on here, definitively, if they got to play Solitaire, they would just wash. Like all the rest of the decks. I feel like Adamants, though, are definitely one of those decks that are arguably just as strong going second as they are going first, just because, like I said, they can just push through so much. Next up, I'll go back to Dragmas. So this deck's a little bit newer. It's more of like, it's more control oriented, kind of like Eldritch. One thing with this deck is, even though it's new, I do think it's a little bit too overhyped, because this deck actually... Okay, so to explain it, because this is a really strong deck, I'm not going to say it's not, because absolutely Dragma, without proper counters and proper side decking, proper preparation for your main deck, just having the information and knowledge that this is going to be prevalent in the metagame, you want to prepare for this. Without the right preparation, this deck can really catch you off guard, and even decks like Adamantispators can be punished, because it does have consistent access to Winda through Shadal Rook, and just, I'll show you down here. Now that I'm showing the extra deck cards, I might as well just go down for Dragma and show the Ashen Dragon and the Winda. So this archetype allows you to actually get access to Shadal engines without playing like Shadal monsters or fusion spells. So it's really, really cool how it does it. It's able to send Op Colone, grab Rook, pitch it, sing Construct, and like another Dark Construct, grab Rook, and you can basically summon Window on your opponent's turn. So like, even if your turn 1 board is not that formidable, if it's just like Makaba, you know, a couple back rows and a Rook, like, it's still strong, especially because Fleur de Lis is a negation hand trap that doesn't target, which is really, really strong. And also this deck can kind of mess up your game plan if you're playing a really, really tight extra deck and you need like certain cards. Just taking 2 cards already from it can be a big problem. And I also think some of their other cards can even mess with your extra deck. Maximus Dragma is one of the big ones. So what I was trying to explain earlier, I wanted to just talk about the strengths of, you know, not all the strengths, but just how good it is. Because it really is. It has a lot of consistent 1-card combos. You know, the deck has a resiliency to it. You know, it's really strong. It can get a lot of value out of just so little. And that's a really, really good quality or characteristic of a tier 1 deck. When you can get so much out of so little, which makes it more compact, splashable with other hand traps, generic staples. Side decking is going to be easier because you don't have to really take out your engine, you know, because it's so compact, you could just take out certain other generic staples. But what I wanted to say is probably out of all of the deck, and I mean out of all of them, which is kind of strange that Dragma has this big weakness, out of all of the decks on this list, definitively, not even talking about tiers, just out of all of them, Dragma is probably the only one that hard counters itself. Not talking about mirror matches, just in the sense that Maximus Dragma, I think a lot of people are going to get really smart with this deck and start researching these cards, and they're going to realize that Maximus actually allows both players to send, your opponent to send 2 and you send 2 monsters from their extra deck to the grave. What I mean by it hard counters itself is because when people start to prepare for Dragma, they can send Elder Entities from their own extra deck, so you literally give them 2 interruptions. which is crazy because it doesn't say 2 monsters with different names. It just says 2 monsters from their extra deck. So you could send 2 Elder Entities, destroy their board, right? It gets even worse. You can send, because this card actually is really strong. It just doesn't normally get this effect that often unless it's like getting Nibiru'd. Cyber Dragon Nova. So Cyber Dragon Nova actually is another card that hard counters this archetype. So if you have an extra deck space and your opponent resolves Maximus and you send your Nova, you could send 1 Nova and 1 Elder Entity, pop one of their cards, summon a Makaba on your turn 0. So they can actually wreck you and give you free pluses in the sense where like you're getting free boss monsters out and interruptions and getting your graveyard set up depending on the archetype just by them resolving Maximus, which is like a huge detriment. So one thing I will say, you know, and I'm not saying I'm the only one who knows this, but that's like a really, really big problem with this archetype specifically, since that's how it needs to set up. It has to give those cards to your opponent. Alright, my love. It has to give those cards to your opponent. So just with proper preparation, this deck can easily be power crept. Not easily, but I will say it can definitely be power crept because just people being ready for it, having those staples like a Makaba, a Nova, and an Ints. You know, I know it's 3 extra deck slots, but if you have space, the moment your opponent resolves Maximus, like, they're in trouble. They need to have called bys and, like, you know, other cards. Like, they have to have their own Makaba up already, but now they're burning a called by and a Makaba negation while you still have 5 cards in hand. So I will say that definitely this deck can come back to bite its own self in the butt. Not to say that it's just not going to be tier 1, because it probably is. It's definitely already has the blueprint and the layout of a tier 1 deck. It has all the characteristics and qualities that you would look for in a tier 1 deck. So moving forward, we're talking about Numeron. I think this deck, I wouldn't say it's trash, because that just sounds wrong, but oh yeah, the extra deck cards for Numerons, it's just an engine, it's not really a deck. We have Zexal in one of the gates. I didn't put up all of them. As you guys see, I'm tight on space here, man. I'm trying to work it out for you guys. So I just have these 3 cards to show you guys Numeron. This is another engine you have to be on the lookout for. Numeron Guru, Numeron Eldritch. Heck, I mean, people are getting to the point where they're like Numeron Shaddolls, Numeron Dark Magician, anything Numeron, like, it's splashable, you know, you literally, like, it's crazy, because a lot of decks, in fact, literally any deck really can play Numerons. All they have to do is just sacrifice extra deck space and relinquish their turn 1 combo plays, or anything that they would normally do in the form of, like, special summoning or swarming the field. So it has a drawback. And, you know, there are obviously counters to Zexal. It's not impossible to stop, but Zexal Lock is something that you guys are going to have to be on the lookout. The reason why this is strong is because it forces players to main deck cards that are not traditionally going to be, I guess you could say, strong or impactful in every matchup, but because just the sheer fact that let me check my battery, the sheer fact that Numeron exists, it's forcing people to main deck cards like Ghost Ogre, like Gamma, Forbidden Chalice, Imperm. People are even probably going to end up electing to main deck Droplets, and I will say, Numeron Eldritch is probably going to be the strongest variant of Numeron, because with the interaction that people are talking about now with Sanguine and Conquistador, they're able to pop their Zexal, which Droplet, if you read it, it has to negate the effect monsters your opponent currently controls, or just controls. So if you activate Droplets and you don't send a trap trying to negate Zexal, and they chain, you don't send a trap, I'm saying you don't, right? And they chain, you know, Conquistador, chain Sanguine, and they basically pop their Zexal, he is no longer a effect monster. If you read it, effect monster your opponent controls, because he's no longer on their field. He's in their possession, but he no longer controls it, which means because Droplet can't negate graveyards, it can't negate the Zexal. So Numeron Eldritch plays around Imperm, Chalice, and even Forbidden Droplet if you don't send a trap card for this card. So it's like, you know, the Zexal lock that board puts up, you have to have Gamma. And they have to, like, not have the counter for Gamma. So they put up the strongest Zexal lock. Are they going to OTK you all the time? No, not necessarily. But I feel like if they open the Sanguine and Conquistador to play around your Imperm, they probably already have enough damage on board for lethal. So just be on the lookout for Numeron. Numeron Eldritch is probably going to be the strongest variant of Numeron. And again, it just reinforces the tier 1 status of Eldritch, because it's already such a good deck by itself. Is Eldritch going to get touched on the ban list? Who knows? knows? I'm not here to talk about what's going to get banned. If there was to be a ban list, it obviously there would be a lot up for discussion, but let's move on to the next archetype. So we talked about Emancipators, we talked about Maximus Dragmas, or Dogmatikas, if you guys want to say that. Somebody's going to comment, technically they're called, okay, I get it, bro. So we went over Eldritch, Dogmatikas, Dragmas, Emancipators, Numerons. Now we're moving forward to Tri-Brigades. So the reason why this is also, you guys are going to have to be weary about this, is because it's so splashable that it allows decks like Samorg, Harpy Ladies, Ancient Warriors, oh my goodness, literally any Beast Warrior, Wing Beast, or Beast archetype can play Tri-Brigades. And the thing with these cards is, it reminds me of like Eldritch and Emancipators, just in the sense where Emancipators were a huge boost for any rock archetype. Eldritch was like a huge boost where they were supposedly, that's how I look at it at least, were like a huge boost for any zombie archetype. Because if you also pay attention, like Sanguine and some of the Eldritch cards can summon any zombie if you have Golden Lord. Like these cards summon any rock, you know, the Emancipator tuners. So it's like even though they're an archetype on their own, they boost rock and zombies. And Tri-Brigade respectively boosts all three of those sub archetypes. The strongest variants I feel like of Tri-Brigade, the one that I feel like people are going to play with the most, and this is just my speculation, is going to be Zodiac. The reason being is because Zodiac is already a strong deck. It's a self-contained one-card engine. It's a past, basically it's a past tier 0 deck. Honestly, it was like pushing that tier 0 status, where it was like tier 1 minimum. Like Zodiac was like just a problem, you know. Dryden's back, Brawl Ball's banned, but it doesn't mean the deck's not playable. It has one barrage, and yet it's still able to do what it does. The reason why the Tri-Brigade cards are so good is because they can summon so many powerful extra deck monsters without using the proper link materials. So it's almost like one card can basically get you a free link 3. And why that becomes a problem is because anybody that's playing Tri-Brigade can now put out infinite negates. I'm not saying that it doesn't lose to Nibiru before you make any smart mouth comments, you know. I know that some of these combos can lose to Nibiru. I understand that every deck has its own weakness. But just for the simple fact that literally any deck that splashes Tri-Brigade can just put up infinite negates already means now some of even our favorite decks that we feel like really need a boost in their ceiling, or like their power needs to like just go up, they need to go up a tier, we can splash Tri-Brigade in our deck, put up infinite negates, some more Glock, like it's just so strong, you guys. Like just the infinite negate interaction alone, and that's not even including the actual Tri-Brigade link monsters. These cards are really strong. I wasn't able to fit the link 4, but all these cards respectively are really powerful. And I feel like Tri-Brigade is just like, again, it's kind of gonna be like Dragma and like Eldritch, where it's gonna be like Dragma and Eldritch and Numeron are like engines more than they are decks. And Tri-Brigade's probably going to be an engine more than it's going to be played as a deck, but I think it's one of the most powerful engines. So this is going to be another part of the big future of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where Tri-Brigade is going to be huge, because you have to realize how many people, even like myself, that may have decks that fall in the category of Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast. Like I mentioned, you know, like Harpies, you know, they're really not doing anything. Zodiacs are probably doing the most of all of them, I would say, probably. And also just keep in mind, you know, even those lower tier decks, even like Ancient Warriors, are able to do stuff like that now. Infinite Negates is just one of the many things that you can do, but I feel like that in itself is a win condition. It's not going to be like, you know, literally the end all be all, because Dark Ruler no more and Forbidden Droplets and Nibiru obviously, you know, take place into that. And these decks do have hard counters to each other, so there's not always going to be like, I feel like all these decks are going to be able to keep each other in check to where one doesn't just come all the way on the top. If all these decks that I'm talking about end up being in the format, it's going to be really hard to say anything is the best deck, because they're just going to be like a big 5 or maybe even a big 7, because there's so many that are strong. But don't sleep on Tri-Brigade. I definitely think that it has that much more potential than even just the surface of what I'm talking about. It's going to be able to do a lot more than what I'm saying, because I'm not even proficient in that area. I have not tested Tri-Brigade yet, but I do know the ceiling of these cards, and I know that they are going to be meta defining. They're going to change the game, just like Dragma is going to change how people play their decks, how people prepare. So another deck that's already been around is Dinosaurs. You guys be on the lookout for this deck too. Do not think that dinosaurs are going to go anywhere until anything happens, which I assume, I'm just going to speculate that nothing's going to happen to any dinosaur cards on any ban list ever again. Like ever again. That's how I feel. They've just shown us like they're not gonna do it. They never hit Oviraptor. They brought Miscellaneousaurus back to 3. They took Lithosogem off the ban list. They made Adamadorn Archosaur, bro. They reprinted what's the card's name? Double Evolution Pill. I really don't think that dinosaurs are ever going to be touched again. They're just going to stay at full power. Full power dinos are also like one of those decks because they can be played as like a combo variant with Hawkwood Fibrax. They can put up multiple negations, Shrieking of All Calamities. They can hand loop you. They can do so much. They also can put up a barrier statue lock with Conductor. They can put up like Logia plus Conductor, barrier statue. Like they have auto win boards because like none of these decks really, I would say, except for like maybe Dragoonides, could play under the wind barrier statue. Like maybe Tri-Brigades if they find some miraculous way to get enough, just to get enough like Beast Warriors or Wing Beasts in their grave to summon some more from their extra deck, because that is a wind maybe. But just the fact that dinos have like their own win cons in their self too, already being such a powerhouse, and probably out of all of these decks, probably gonna be one of the biggest counters to combo decks that don't hand loop you or FTK you, but just put up big gigantic boards full of multiple negations, boss monsters that interact on your turn, because of this card that I'm pointing to, Conductor. Like this card, like his effect to attack everything doesn't activate. So like one of the most, like you could even call it Helmet, one of the simplest things that dinos can do is just summon a Conductor and run over the whole Adamantipator board, the entire, you know, Dragma board, like whatever board it is. Like if it's a huge beefy board, even a Pendulum board, let's say it's a Madolche board, you know, let's just say like you bait Promenade and then you just summon Tyranno, like you could just like you could swing over everything. Like it's crazy. Like this deck is really strong. Miscellaneousaurus is one of the most powerful pseudo hand trap cards you could think of. It gives you protection for your entire main phase from literally any hand trap. Let me just grab my charger real quick. Yeah, I gotta get this on the charger. There we go. Alright, it's charging. So yeah, I gotta scoot up a little bit. So next thing that I'll talk about, because dinos, they can put up like Logia, they can put up Doka, they can make Dweller, they can put up Overtex, Pankratops, Shrieking of All Calamities, so many different boards. Turn 1. This is a deck that can both go first and second. Eldritch, Dragmas also, because being able to send from the extra deck to the graveyard, which is really strong. You can send cards like, I don't really know how to pronounce her name properly, the Skull King, the Fossil Monster, you know, so many things. They can break boards too. Adamantispators are crazy going second. Like when this deck opens a good hand, like I said, it just plays through so much. It can just push through it. Like even in a mirror, like just being able to summon Dragite and just clear everything after you bait it the negates is just ridiculous. Numeron is not that great going second. Yeah, it has a cool little, like, not even cool, it's kind of like a cheesy OTK with 4 Numeron monsters. Like, you have to be able to get to that point. And if you're going second against any competent player or any strong high tier deck, the odds are Numeron Network's just not going to resolve unless they literally just like bricked and have no interruptions. But dinos are like, they're able to go first or second, and this is a deck that's tried and true. It's done multiple things. In this format, just alone, it's had multiple variations that's topped. Eldritch has had multiple variances that's top. Adamants, you know, same with them. Numerons, I really want to say, I feel like Numerons is just like so brain dead. Like, there's no like real, I guess the biggest brain thing you can do with trying to get out your Zexal is just activate Calling to play around Ogre, and do the Conquistador Sanguine interaction to play around Imperm, Droplet, and Chalice. But like honestly for me, because you don't have to work for the Zexal, you just activate Network, send Calling, summon 3, summon Zexal. Do you really feel like your opponent like worked for that? At least with Adamantispators and like other combo decks, like with Dinos, or you know, Infernoble Knights, Dragoonides, Dragon Link, they have to really think through their plays. And also, not everybody's gonna be able to play that deck because it's not a simple deck. But with Numeron Network, it's like the it's like a watered down way to lock your opponent out, where like I guess for some people they don't like the sophisticated combo deck, so I will say it's good for them that at least, because you know some people just can't play combo because it just requires too much brain power, and some people don't want to have to think through their plays that much, or some people just can't, like they just don't, you know, it's not to say they don't have the brain capacity, some people just don't have the patience, they don't feel like going through all those motions. But I personally just don't respect the Zexalock because it's just way too easy. It's like Mystic Mine, it's free, you know, and for me, I'll work for it. I'll go through the motions of summoning like a multi-negate board, I'll search out my Herald combo pieces, at least let me do something fun on the way. But activate network, send it, summon Zexal, GG, if you don't have the counter, you know. But moving past Dinos, this is another deck that you guys might think that you won't see. You're tripping if you think you're not going to see Megalith. Okay, like, you guys have to even research on what this deck can do. There are multiple variations. Multiple. You can even lock your opponent out the game just with, like, Rock Stun, Fossil Dyna. You can lock your opponent out with the Calamity Synchro. It's like a hot red. It's one of the Red Dragon Archfiend archetype Synchro monsters. Your opponent can't activate literally any card effects. It's a more powerful Zexalock because your opponent can't respond to it either. You can put up like literally like you can set up like Dweller, Appaloosa, Titanic. You can put up like stupid boards. You can be able to summon Baither on your opponent's turn to pop multiple cards, plus having multiple negates, locking your opponent out of activating any card effects whatsoever, and you can summon the Churio Exterio on top of that. And you can play Block Dragon, and you can play the Adamancipator cards, and this deck uses Hauko Fibrax, Link Cross, Auradon. You can put up Arclight, Savage, Baither to pop, Abyss Dweller. Like, what the heck? This deck can make so many things. Like, there's so many variations. Even summoning the Chaos Max ritual that locks your opponent out of activating monster effects. And it's like the moment he's ritual summoned, I look at him almost like an Azathoth. When he hits the field, it's over. Like, it's just so crazy. Like, this deck, even though it's a ritual deck, I feel like, dang, you know, if I feel bad for my Heralds, because Heralds just Forbidden Droplets out now, Darkwill and more, dang, I have so much to worry about. But like, Megalith is a ritual deck that's going to be able to thrive because it can do stupid stuff that doesn't even lose to Droplet. It can play through Nibiru. You can, I played against this deck with Altergeist. I Nibiru'd him and he kept going. What the heck, bro? This deck is crazy. You guys cannot sleep on Megaliths. Anybody that's competent enough to even know how to play this deck can easily make it extremely far in any high-level tournament because this deck is so resilient. I have tested against this deck. I've opened Imperm Multi-Faker and couldn't even stop it, bro. I've done like the best that I could to stop this deck. This deck is really good. It's super strong. It's hard to counter. It reminds me of Adamant because it can just play through so much. I'm speaking of real life experience, and I play this deck in real life, so I know what I'm talking about, and I played against it. And it also has a one-card Despot combo that literally gets you like +9. There's so many variations of this deck. Megaliths are insanity, you guys. Oh my goodness, I feel like the Yugi-tuber that respects this deck the most is gonna be MCole40, I think is his name. He wears like, it's a dude with glasses. I don't really watch him too much, but I've seen him talking about this deck. Like, this deck is just crazy. It's another crazy combo deck, and it plays through so many hand traps. It's ridiculous. And this deck dodges Veiler, it dodges Imperm, it dodges like all the, it's crazy. It can dodge targeting effects. It plays around Ogre with Block Dragon. It plays around Gamma with Block Dragon. You can't really Ash sometimes because you can chain block, and then like when you can Ash, it sucks. Like, oh my goodness, this deck was so annoying for me because even when I used my hand traps at the right time, it kept going. It played through double Imperm Ash. Like, what the heck? This is not Adamancipators. It's not supposed to be able to do that, but it did do that. So be on the lookout for Megaliths, you guys, because this deck is like, just with full and unformed and the right build and the right player, this deck is another deck that's going to be a big part of the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! So moving forward, we got good old Salads, you guys. Salads, I put Sunlight Wolf down there because this is respectively kind of like the Macabre for the Alistair, the Conductor for the Pill. Sunlight Wolf is like a bread and butter card for Salads, so since I had only space for like one extra deck card, I chose Sunlight Wolf because he can carry the deck. Salamangreats, they're tried and true, you guys. This deck is arguably, it was tier 1 status. It's kind of like, I see it as like tier 1.5. It's above tier 2, because one thing with Salamangreats is that it has a strength that not every deck's gonna have. Like, Adamancipators is really strong, and so is like Eldritch and all these other decks. But like, with Salamangreats, they're just good all across the board. Like, they don't really have bad matchups. Like, they have cards that can shut them down, like Dweller and Calamities, but when you really think about it, Dweller and Calamities, like this card right here, like, those cards just shut down almost every single archetype. Like, legitimately, dang near a vast majority of these archetypes get shut down by Dweller. So, like, it needs its graveyard to play, because it really does play out of its graveyard after turn 1, which is a strength that not every deck is going to have, because you don't need to rely on the cards you have in your hand anymore. In fact, you can add cards from your graveyard to your hand and refill your hand with this deck. It can play so many staples, so many hand traps. It only needs one card to get its engine going. It's a self-replacing, recursive, very grinding, powerful deck. It can OTK off of one card, which is crazy. Banning OTK. Lady Debug is a 1-card OTK. I believe Spinny and Gazelle's a 2-card OTK. It has so many ways to OTK. It also can set up really decent boards. Like, if you get nice with this deck and you really, like, I think the best board it can put up is probably going to be Rage, Roar, Dweller, and some hand traps. And you back up a Dweller with a counter trap, basically a Fire Lake of the Burning Abyss, if you really look at it like that way, with hand traps and a self-replacing engine that turns into a follow-up access code talker OTK. You got yourself a good deck that's not going to be like, it's not going to be like a watered-down combo deck. It's not going to be like just the deck that's trying to lock your opponent out the game. It's going to play fair, but also at the same time, it's not slow. You know, it's kind of just like in between. It's like that mid ground. Salamangreats is kind of like combo. It's kind of like control. It's the embodiment of a mid-range deck. This is a deck if you don't want the headache of playing Adamans or Megaliths, because there's just so much, you know, like, there's so much intricate lines of play you have to make. Play a simpler deck. Play Dragmas, play Eldritch, play Numerons, play Salad. Salad is not as simple, though, as Numeron, Eldritch, or Dragma. I think Salad also has a very, very high skill gap. Meaning, like, it's not as easy as people think it is, but at the same time, it's definitely not as difficult to pilot as a combo deck like Rockets, like Dragon Link is very difficult, which is coming up next. So, like, Salamangreat's always going to be around. As long as Gazelle's at 1, this deck is definitely going to stick around. If Gazelle gets banned, it's probably still going to be around. It's just like Sky Strikers, you know, it hasn't been around as long as Strikers, but it's that deck that's just stayed in the format. It's found a way to fight and fight and fight, stay in the format, and remain in the top 5 meta decks for a very, very long time. So don't ever be surprised when you see Salamangreats doing well, because it's always going to be a good deck until, well, it's probably never going to get hit again on the ban list. So it's just always going to be good. It's probably going to go down in history as one of the best decks that ever was, because of how long it's been able to keep its, like, threshold. Moving forward, Dragon Link, I put, like, Osla, because there is an FTK variant, and then there's, like, a combo variant. I got, like, Osla, Levianeer, Safer, and Tracer. To resemble Dragon Link, I also put down here Romulus, Heavenly Spheres. Yeah, just Romulus and Heavenly Spheres. Just 2 of, like, the Link 2s that this deck plays. Just to give you guys, like, a picture of some of the cards it plays. Like, resolving Romulus in this deck is, like, game 2, which is crazy. So, Dragon Link is kind of like Adamancipators in the sense where, like, it's a resilient combo deck that can lock you out the game. And I will say with this deck, though, you're not going to whiff because you're not leaving it to chance. With Adamancipators, everything's going to be a chance. Even the Hawk with Fibrax combo to make your wrap tight, it's still a chance that that Synchro monster can whiff. And if you whiff on every single Adamancipator, which is not always going to happen, your board is not going to be all that. Even if it's decent, it's never going to be as good as it would have been if Analyzer, Seeker, and also Researcher and Raptite all resolved. That's 4 extra extenders, plus like whatever else your composition of your starting hand was. But with Dragon Link, it's like, that's why I said it's fighting with Adamant right now for like what the best combo deck is. Because like Infernoble Knights, Megaliths with their new support, Tri-Brigade is not really like a combo deck. It's kind of like mid-range. I would say it's like mid-range like Salad. They're all like really, really strong combo decks, honestly. And Dragon Link has an FTK variant, which is probably the most degenerate one on this list. I'd rather get Zexalock than FTK, because at least I have like a chance to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe I'm playing Altergeist and I'm nice and I have a Compulse and, you know, like a multi-faker. You know, maybe I can still play Yu-Gi-Oh! But like with the FTK, if I don't have hand traps, I lose. So this deck, like, it's like really tough, like, because when you get paired up against Dragon Link, you have to really be concerned. Are you playing against the FTK, or are you playing against just like a fair variant? Even though the boards they put up won't be fair, you still have a chance. Like, you still have like Droplets, you know, Dark Ruler no more. Since they're not hand looping you, you don't have to hand trap them. You can just side in your haymakers like Dark Ruler, Droplet, Evenly, Kaijus, you know, Lava Golems, whatever you need to do, bro. Spear mode them if you got to, you know. But the fact that this deck has an FTK is crazy. So Dragon Link is very resilient. It can get so much off of one card. And I also like that it's a combo deck that can main like 10 plus hand traps. Adamantipator's, when they put hand traps in their deck, they also tamper with their consistency, which is a big problem. So they can, but also they can't do it as much. Like, Dragon Link can play way more hand traps and staples like Cyclones and Call by the Grave than Adamantipator's can, but I feel like Adamantipator's can push harder going second than Dragon Link can. Because, like, Dragon Link, sometimes just stopping the normal summon ends everything. Like, not all the time, but a lot of the times the normal summon is the choke point, because, like, that's where a lot of your combo is going to start off. Like with Safer, like with Black Metal Dragon, you know, just being able to set up your combo, getting access to your boot sector launch, you know, resolving certain cards. People will try to stop the deck in the middle of the combo, but like, it can sometimes, you know, the normal summon, it makes a big difference. It's not the end of the world, because boot sector launch is a card, you know, obviously, the quick play, quick launch, you know, as a card. It's not impossible, but I do think that the normal summon is a really strong thing about this deck. Being able to normal Black Metal, normal Safer, like, just the normal summon alone is going to get you so far, you know, into your engine and getting your combo started. But like, this deck is really strong. It's a tier 1 deck. It's a powerful combo deck. It can play through hand traps, interruptions. It doesn't, like, you could get Nibiru, you can get Ash, you can get Impermed, and like, it's crazy, and it's so hard to define, like, or determine when do I nib them, when do I imperm, because it has so many haymakers. It has Link Cross Hulk, you know, it has Romulus, like, it has Heretic Seals. It has so many powerful extra deck cards that all are worthy of a hand trap, and the fact that it can play through Nibiru is just something else too. Like, goodness gracious. Dragon Link, it's kind of funny too, because this deck was part of the older format where, like, it was like Dragon Link, Lunalights, Spirals, and Shaddolls, and like Dinosaurs were like the 5 best decks. But then Spirals got banned, well, didn't get banned, but the ban list killed them. Lunalights got killed, Shaddolls fell out of favor, Dinos kind of got power crap just for a little bit, and then Dragon Link, nothing happened to them, people just stopped playing it. But then, you know, people started flocking, you know, following trends. They saw Dragon Link doing good, then it became tier 1, which it was already tier 1, let's be honest. But representation determined that now it is tier 1 again. Another deck that you guys probably need to be aware of too, because this is another powerful combo deck that does play through. Oh my goodness. Can you believe that Dragonides can ever do this stuff now? Like, I don't have the new cards on here to like show. Well, I do have one of them, which is the Ariad Bear, and also Barsha. Like, okay, so like, the fact that this deck has a soul charge that's like not once per turn, that you can summon multiple times, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, this deck probably has like more extenders, or has the ability to extend more than I think like any other deck on the. Let me see. No, Madojes have it, like, they can't. Salad, no. Not even Adamantipator's can swarm that much. Like, literally, if you see Dragonides go off, see somebody trying to Nibiru them, trying to Ash, trying to Imperm, trying to Gamma them, trying to Ghost Ogre them, just like, what the heck, bro? And then it's ending on a board that. So, one thing with this deck's combo boards, which is so different from Dragon Link, if they don't FTK you, because you don't get a turn anyways, and Adamantipator's, and like Dinos, is all the boards that those decks make can be answered to Dark Ruler and Droplets, respectively. If they Buster Lock you, you still can't use your extra deck. But Dragonides can put up a combo board that puts up Lechery and Morphage Goliath, which absolutely hard counters Droplet, Dark Ruler. Shoot, it hard counters 3 tactical talents. It can't really be evenly matched because they have negates. You have to like spear mode that junk. You have to spear mode and then play through a couple more negations anyways. Like, these boards are crazy, and because people are not really going to be playing spear mode, they're going to be probably playing kaijus, and like more or less they're probably going to just be playing evenly, Dark Ruler, Droplets. They're probably going to be sideboarding into, you know, a Pointer of the Red Lotus, Lightning Storms. You know, it's not very likely that you're going to get spear moded. Like, this deck is actually really, really good. Let me go to Dragoonity. I'm just going to give you guys a glimpse really fast of the new cards. Armagrom, I don't really have enough time to go because I'm still in the video trying to finish it up, already 45 minutes in. Grom, Legatus, oh, goodness gracious. Oh, where's the really, really, really broken one? Not really broken, but like super strong. Remus, like I don't even know if it's done getting new support. And Glow, all these cards, and Romulus is not as new, but it's a newer card that came out a little bit later. Like, and Ocelot, oh my goodness, like, this deck has an arsenal. It has a toolbox, and the reason why I have it on this list is because if a player, like, let's say, for example, Cody Angeloff decides, I want to play Dragoonities, do you really think that he's not gonna, like, oh my goodness. Like, just why, Dragoonities, why did you get so good out of nowhere? Like, you really think that someone's not going to be topping with this deck consistently? Because it has all of the qualities of a tier 1 combo deck, and then the board it puts up is better than the Adamant board, because you're locked out of your extra deck and you can't activate spell cards. That's an added bonus, where Adamants and Dragon Link, they're not the FTK, just the combo board, they can't lock you out of your extra deck and prevent you from activating spells, even if they lock you out of your extra deck, just for the simple fact, and this is just the simple thing, Morphages have more tricks up their sleeve. They have like, you could put up Goliath as basically a floodgate that's like a Dark Law. They can stop you from responding at Chainlink 2 or higher. There's more Morphage cards, but like Lechery Goliath is like game, you know, and you have Borreload Savage, multiple monster negates, Omni negates, Heretic Spears, you know, just like so much. And when you see this deck in action, you will be blown away by how much it can play through. Like, look at people just locking you out the game with like Spell Canceller, just so many different ways that you can pilot this deck. The fact that it plays through so many interruptions is crazy. Don't sleep on Dragoonities, you guys. Moving forward, Infernoble Knights are definitely tier 1. Absolutely, hands down, they're tier 1. Like, right now, with things as things stand, Link Cross is a big deal for this deck, but still, right now as things stand, this is a tier 1 deck. It has all the characteristics and qualities and traits of a tier 1 deck. It's not as strong going second as a deck like Adamant, Dragoonities, you know, Dragon Link, Dinos. Because, like, the reason why these decks are so strong going second is, like I said, they can push. They can push. When I say push, push means like this. Oh, I let you play Solitaire. I didn't have a hand trap. You put up a multiple interruption board, but I still broke it. That's something Yu-Gi-Oh! Players keep forgetting. They just think, like, your board, if you don't open Dark Ruler no more, you can't break my board. That's not true. Some of these decks are so good, they just break your board. They play through all your negates. They chain block, they summon Levianeer, they clap you. And you're like, dang, I thought I was gonna win. You know, I had 4 negates. It don't work like that. Especially with, like, Adamant. Like, when you guys just see this deck in action. Goodness gracious. Because it sometimes gets lucky and just hits Kwakimaru Guardian out of nowhere. And now Guardian's like, hi Appaloosa, hi Borreload Savage, hi Orclight, how you doing? You know, like, goodness. But Infernoble Knights can rip your entire hand dang near. They put up multiple negations. They have their own kind of Dryden-esque card. They have resiliency. They can play through multiple hand traps. They have their own, dang, I forgot to put up Gearfried, but let me just go ahead to Immortal. Dang, let me just type Gearfried. They also have Gearfried, which is a main deck boss monster where they don't need access to their extra deck to get out a negation. Ooh, excuse me. Which also allows them to play through monster hand traps like Valor, Gamma, and Nibiru. The fact that they can consistently access this card, search it out, and summon it, is really, really strong for their archetype. So I guess I'll take Smoke Grenade out. Smoke Grenade is just how a lot of the hand loops become a lot more frequent, because like you can have triple 3 tactical talents and Smoke Grenade of the Thief and like already be ripping cards out of their hand, and because you play through hand traps, your opponent will already have less cards in their hand, and then you keep comboing off anyways. So I'm just gonna put Gearfried here because this deck is so strong. I really want to play it myself, but I'm very, very I guess you can say I'm kind of iffy on playing meta decks because I don't really like playing the same deck as everybody else, expecting mirrors and knowing everybody's going to be side decking for my deck. I'd rather come in playing Prank Kids or Shaddolls if I keep it 100 with y'all. I'd rather play either Prank Kids, Shaddolls, or Altergeist. You know, like, if I was going to choose, this is just me. Or I'd play Phantom Knights. That's just me, though. But, like, Infernoble Knights, you know, Charles, oh my goodness. Roland, like, are you kidding me? Like, this deck is so strong, you guys. Like, this deck is going to attract a lot of the strong pro players. Some people are going to drop Adamancipator. They're going to drop Adamant. They're going to drop Dragon Link and flock to Infernoble Knights. Because this is like an FTK in itself. And you don't have to, with this deck, the thing with Dragon Link, to get the FTK off, they do have to play bricks. They do have to play garnets. No, it's not the end of the world if you draw this because you can equip it from your hand off Union Carrier. It's not the end of the world if you do draw Black Garden for the Rose play so that you can like keep burning them because Black Garden is going to keep summoning token. But it makes your deck less consistent in the sense that you are putting cards in your deck that don't do anything by themselves. But with Infernoble Knights, when you're facilitating your win condition, you're using your archetype specific cards that are actual combo pieces to do so. So it's consistent in that sense, where it doesn't need all the garnets that Dragon Link plays, and it doesn't have to play 60 cards or 50 cards. You can play a 40 card list. You can main hand traps. You know, you have 1 card starters. You have cards like Aqua Dolphin to rip even more cards out of your opponent's hand. Like this deck has such resiliency, and because the Infernoble Knights are all really strong, all really, really strong by themselves, like Renaud, Olivier, and also Ogier, and like, you know, like Gearfried, just like their main deck is already really strong, and you can have like a monster just like traditional Noble Knights, just unable to be targeted and destroyed by things, just being so hard to get over. Like even just minimum, just putting up a, like, I think Gearfried's 3k too, putting up a 3k Gearfried that's indestructible, untargetable, you know, in a simplified game state is also going to be really, really strong, because you just got to look at it like an Avermax or a BLS or an Endymion that also negates, you know, like monster effects, which is crazy. So like this deck's strong. Isolde is one of the most broken link monsters in the game. The fact that this deck just gets to use this card is just an added benefit. It's another plus. Like Link Cross and Halku Fibrax are just going to be doing so much. Auradon is really big for this deck too. Like, oh my goodness. And after you rip so many cards out of your opponent's hand, you're like, hello Arclight, hello Savage, where you going, boy? You're done. Moving forward, Altergeist is another deck that's been doing really good in the online formats. It got Faker back to 3. This is one of the slower decks to start off. You know, this deck has to get you in the mid to late game, unless you open like Marionetter plus another Altergeist and you play Haunted Rock. You get yourself out the early game like so fast. But this deck really, really shines once it gets its engine going, because you know, it's really, really, really hard to stop it once it gets going. And honestly, being able to set up Kirin, monster negates, multiple spell trap negates, having your hand traps and your traps, it doesn't get any better than that. Well, it can, but it's like for that deck, it doesn't get any better than that. Having hand traps, counter traps, crackdowns, compulses, you know, Faker, Conquery being a negation, attack negator, and a spot negation, Protocol saying you can't do anything to respond to my cards, like looping your cards with Manifestation, Hexia negating. Like this deck is so strong, you guys, and it's been doing good, and it has topped in the online format, so it has things to back up its contention, you know, being able to be definitive in the format. Like it's like a tier 2. I would say it should be higher, but its representation does not allow it to go any higher. But also be on the lookout for that. Nobody likes to play against this deck anyways. It's like no fun. You know, Geist, no fun. I don't want to play against Geist. Zodiacs, I should have put them next to Tri-Brigade, because this is going to be the way to play Zodiacs. You're also going to be using this Zeus card, which we might as well talk about this. A lot of decks are going to be able to make this, but Zodiacs are going to make it the easiest because one card gets you Zeus with enough materials to resolve his effect multiple times, which is crazy. And this card in itself is like a win condition. The fact that Zodiacs will have access to Zeus, the fact that Zodiacs will be able to put up infinite negates, the fact that Zodiacs are already such a good deck, the fact that they can do all of this off of 1 or 2 cards, the fact that they can play so many hand traps and regular traps like Solemn Strikes, they can main Cyclones, they can play Crackdown, they can make Access Code Talker, they have the access to the Infinitrack Link monster, they have so many haymakers in their arsenal, like, you know, Zeus, like the Tri-Brigades, like the Infinity Negation Lock, you know, off Sovereignty, and Union Carrier, and also being able to just summon out like the Infinitrack monster. Some decks just don't have that out, and Dryden already in itself just being a free interruption that you could just get access to. Like this deck, because it has access to so many of these really strong cards, it makes whatever tier Zodiacs are in to be higher than it is. If this is tier 3, now it's tier 2. If this is tier 2, it's going to be probably tier 1.5. Do be on the lookout for Zodiacs because people are going to be playing Tri-Brigade Zeus, and they're definitely going to be running Zeus. Also, keep in mind, they're probably going to be running Dragoon of the Red Eyes. So, you're going to be seeing like Dragoon, Tri-Brigade, Zeus, Zoo, which is crazy because they can play so many of these cards, because like, unlike other decks, they for sure only need 1 card. Like with Dragon League, yeah, they only need 1 card for their 1-card combos, but like they don't have as many 1-card combos as Zeus do. Eldritch cannot do that much with 1 card. Like Zexolock is not, it doesn't have longevity. It only lasts so long. Dinos, they need like at least 2 cards. I think, like, okay, well, like, Infernal Knights can combo off with 1, but I think they still need a couple more cards to make everything work out. Like, okay, Alistair gets you, like, 1 Macabre, but with, like, Zeus, 1 Zodiac monster can do a lot for you, which is crazy. So, like, you guys have to be careful with this deck. You can't just underestimate it and just not take it seriously when you see it. So, be on the lookout for Zodiacs. We already know how good this deck is. Invoked is definitely going to creep back into the meta with the Dragma archetype coming out, well, pretty much being out. Just expect Invoked to be more popularly splashed into this archetype. This and this are going to be like bread and butter, sword and shield. In fact, it's probably going to be like Invoked. The only reason people are going to be playing it now is to be playing it in Dragma. It makes a lot of sense because Alistair turns himself into Almirage, which gets Dragma online, Maximus, because you can link Almirage into Secure Gardener. Invoked is a resilient engine. It has longevity. It's a 1-card combo. You know, Meltdown's really strong. It doesn't let your opponent respond. It's kind of okay going second. You know, you have access to haymakers like Aguades, Elysium, Kaliga, and Macabre, and then you already have access to like Winda and, you know, your Dragma cards. But just Invoke by themselves are pretty decent. I do think it got power prep just because it's a little bit slower. It doesn't do a lot with 1 card, but 1 card can get you interruptions and a follow-up. But with other decks, you know, like 1 Jet Synchron can get you like Gain because they can summon like True King of all Calamities. But just be on the lookout for Invoke. Don't think that it's like power crept out of the format. It's going to come back. I have Red Eyes Fusion here just to show you guys Dragoon is coming out to the TCG eventually. So I'm not even going to call this a deck. Just consider this. You might as well just guess that every single deck right here, literally all of them, can play Dragoon. If they really wanted to. Even Madolches, like even Madolches, Predecessor is the only card that locks you into only Madolches. Like dang near every other starter, Cake, Angeli, they don't say you can only special summon Madolches for the rest of the turn. It's Pet. Pet is one of the greatest cards, but really, you might as well just say all of these decks potentially can splash Dragoon into their deck, and this card's a win condition in itself. So this is a card that you might want your Forbidden Droplets for, your Dark Ruler no more. You might need your Kaijus, you know, you might need your access code to beat over this guy because he's so huge. You might need like Avermax, you know, just bait the negate and the Avermax over him. Just make sure that you're prepared for Dragoon, you guys. Next up, Prank Kids. The reason why this deck is going to be a meta contender is because of Meow Meow. The fact that this deck can do so much off one card, the fact that it can play hand traps, it's resilient, it can chain block, it can play through hand traps, it also can main deck a lot of strong staple cards. In addition to that, the fact that this deck is so cheesy in time, the fact that it has access to multiple Raigekis and or Heavy Storms, and also considering that it can play Dragoon, it can play so many daggone hand traps. My list plays 18. Also considering, in addition to all of that, that there are still so much more experimental builds that play Adamanticators, that play, infinite negates. This deck can put up infinite negates with the Mist Valley cards. So just keep in mind, Prank Kids can do a lot, and Poly 2 Pranks is still a thing too. Like, that's still just a disgusting combo. Like, you guys just have to be careful with this deck, because, like, just because they look cute, don't let that fool you. This deck can destroy. Like, it's really, really strong. It definitely has the qualities of a tier 1 contender. The fact that you can play over 12 hand traps, up to 20 hand traps in your deck, or Cyclones, the fact that you have a lot of space for droplets and talents. And another strength that this deck has is you have consistent access to spells, traps, and monsters, searchable and recurable, which means that this deck can make one of the most powerful forbidden droplets, because you can send Plan, you can also send your own Pandemonium or your own Prank Kid's Place once it's resolved, and one of your Prank Kid monsters from your hand or field to resolve Droplet. Now your opponent can't activate anything in response, because you sent Monster, Spell, and Trap. Because Prank Kids have consistent access to spells and traps and monsters through the entire duel, even in their one-card combo, they play the best Droplets probably in the entirety of this. You know, Eldritch can do that too, but like, one card does not get you access to monsters, spells, and traps. With this deck, one card gets you access to all of that. You can play so many cool tech cards in this deck. It's a really, really strong deck. I think this is going to be another deck that once Meow Meow comes out, it's going to take the meta by storm. Moving forward to the last two decks, Phantom Knights and Madolches. So as you guys see, the extra deck cards down here are kind of just here for the archetypes. Macabre is for the Invoke. These are for Phantom Knights. These are for Madolches. This is for Altergeist. And also the Verde was just there because people are going to splash Dragoon just like crazy, because you know they are. Just be ready for that. They don't care about playing the bricks. They want Dragoon. This was for Dragoonities. Oh my goodness, Soul Charge that's not once per turn is crazy. This was for Dragoonities and also Dragon Link, both of these. Here's for Prank Kids. So Phantom Knights are really resilient. I should have put Cherubini up for one of their cards, but I put some of their haymakers. So let me get Breaksword out of here and just put up Cherubini. Cherubini, there we go. Whoop, pop her there. Alright, so Phantom Knights are really strong. They have a really, really powerful grind game. They have a really, really, really good archetype. Like, their archetype is really, really good, you guys. Like, when I say that, it's because, like, Phantom Knights are so resilient. You know, they have, like, a multitude of follow-ups all the time. They can, like, literally just, like, grind through back rows, through monster negations, through spell or trap negations. Like, this deck can push, too. And it can be very explosive, or you can play, like, a control deck with a lot of hand traps and main deck droplet and tactical talents. You know, this deck is kind of like a jack of all trades, in the sense where it's not every trade like Salad, but it has like a lot of different things in its toolbox that it can do and make. The fact that it has searchable traps, you know, being able to get access to its counter trap, the new counter trap Phantom Knight's Claw, is really strong. This deck can make True King of all Calamities. You can main deck Orcus cards in it. Like, this deck has access to a lot of haymakers too. Like, it can just make so many really, really strong boss monsters, and all of its boards replace themselves over and over. So this is kind of like Adamants. Like, you break their board, they make it again. With like Infernoble Knights and Dragoonities and Dragon Link, they do run out of steam, but like Adamant's Block Dragon carries them. With Phantom Knights, their archetype just carries them. All their cards replace themselves. You have access to cards like Sasada King, Utopic Future Dragon. This card's like not easy to make, but because of how Phantom Knights operate, they have access to this card on command. This is a win condition in itself. Cherubini is stupid in this deck, being able to send a PK for cost. Like, this is probably going to be the go-to link monster for this deck. This and Isolde, depending on the build, I'd probably play both, just so you can have like both haymakers, which is really, really strong. So like, be wary. because when these new cards come out in Phantom Rage, all the Phantom Knight players are going to come back out of hiding, or just out of wherever they were, and be like, look, it's time for us to take Phantom Knights to the top. So just be careful with this deck, because you don't want to underestimate decks just because you haven't seen them topping before, because like, these decks have the potential to do it. Now with the new cards, it's even more so. Their new rank up is insane. That new Arc Rebellion XYZ monster is just stupid. This deck is just, it's really going to be cutting up. Like, you guys have to be careful with Phantom Knights. So like with Madolches, it's Madolches, you guys. This deck is definitely like minimum tier 2. I would say because it can beat tier 1 decks, you should consider it to be tier 1.5. It has a lot of good representation. It's done extremely well in the online format. It's been in multiple top cuts. It's been able to make boards going first, break boards going second. If it loses the dice roll, it's not the end of the world. The deck is really, really strong, you guys. It has its own archetype specific cards that can carry it. Promenade's really, really nice. Salon is a great addition to the deck because now your normal summon is not your only play. In addition to that, Sistart, it can be really annoying. Like, once it gets the wall up, it's hard to kill this deck. Because, like, Sistart with Ticket, you're just going to keep adding Madolches to your hand over and over and over. You just get, like, a bunch of follow-ups. It's stupid. Like, Last Souffle is like a pseudo DD Crow, which kind of interrupts graveyards. Like, if you play against, like, Adamans, or, like, you know, Infernobles, or, like, any deck that might need their graveyard, like Eldritch, this can be really nice. Tiramisu is one of its star cards, being able to break boards without targeting or destroying, and not being a hard once per turn either. Be careful with Madolches. This deck's already being seen. It's already seeing play. It has its own counter traps too, by the way, that some people might not play, but it has Omni negations. So just keep in mind that it can search out multiple like interruptions. Like, it searches out counter traps to negate monsters or spells or traps. It has just an Omni negate targeting card like Promenade. You know, it can put up really, really strong boards. Really annoying boards. It puts up the wall. It's a very, very well-rounded, fair, and balanced deck. Sure, it can be stupid sometimes when you're like, why did he do all of this off of one Magileine? But at the same time, it's not like it's not letting you play the duel. Not like it's not letting you play the game like Infernoble or another crazy deck. I have 3 tactical and droplet here because these cards also are going to change the game completely. You guys, you're crazy. Not you're crazy, but if you think that people are not going to main deck this and this, you got another thing coming. Droplet might not be main deckable yet because just like the way the format is, some people are not letting you even get a turn for this. But just keep in mind that because these cards exist, these change a lot of things for a lot of strategies. Even for me, my Herald of Perfection, now it's even scarier for Herald. It's for Pendulums, it's really, really going to be scary now. You know, because like, you can have access to Dark Roller no more and Droplet. So even if they have to negate for Dark Roller, you have a Droplet, which is crazy. So like, this card in itself is like, it's like a more busted Forbidden Chalice or Imperm. It just has a cost, but its cost also allows you to mitigate negations on it. So Forbidden Droplet and 3 tactical talents, which talents I feel like is easier to main deck than Droplet, but just these 2 cards are going to change the game, you guys. These cards are insane. So you guys see the list. You guys see all these cards, you guys. Also, just keep in mind, a lot of decks are going to be able to summon Calamities. As long as Haku Fibrex is existing, as long as O-Lion, you know, Link Cross and Mecha Phantom Beast Auradon are around, and, you know, the Garden Maiden and all those cards are around, Calamities is going to be accessible by a lot of decks. There's some sleeper decks like Mermels and other decks like that that just are not here. But these right here, I feel like you're going to see these. Like, some of these you can argue and say, I'm not going to see Madolche, bro. I'm not going to see Prankit. I won't see Phantom Knight. You will definitely see these, because when they get their new cards, you're going to see a resurgence. All the people that played this deck and felt like it wasn't good enough yet, needed new support, got its new support, they're going to come out the woodworks. Same with Dragoonities. And because the new support actually makes these decks tier 2 minimum, you have to be careful. Because just because your deck's not tier 1 doesn't mean you're not going to win. Salamangreats are tier 2, but they can still win they have won a whole tournament that had Adamant and Eldritch running around rampant, and Salamangreats still won the whole tournament. So tier 2 can beat tier 1 with proper preparation and a higher skill level. You know, you can't just be like an average player or an average Joe and come in with a tier 2 deck. You got to work a little bit, but some of these tier 2 decks are just really powerful by themselves. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video, you guys. This is the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! These are the best decks right now. I'm sure you guys might say, oh, there's more, but I just don't have time for all that, bro. I ran out of space just for all these right here. So hopefully you guys learned from this video. This is what you need to be on the lookout for. Right now, you're already going to be expecting to see Eldritch, Dragma, Adamancipators, Numerons, Infernoble Knights. So I would say just for right now, because Phantom Rage is still kind of coming around, so just be wary for Dragon Links, Infernoble Knights, Numerons, Adamancipators, Dragma, and Eldritch. So Eldritch, Dragma, that's 2, Adamant 3, Numeron 4, oh yeah, Salamangreats 5, Dragon Link 6, Infernoble Knights 7. So that's going to be 7 decks that you for sure are going to see a whole lot of. In fact, you'll probably see more of those 7 decks than any other deck. They're going to have the highest representation. Salads are like the tier 2 deck out of them, but the rest of them are kind of like just like tier 1. But I'm going to say a quick prayer and then I'm out. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Jesus, thy kingdom come and thy will be done on earth just as it is in heaven, Lord. Please give us this day our daily bread, Lord Jesus, and please forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, Father, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the glory, and the power forever. In the mighty name of Jesus, hallelujah. Amen, Lord. Alright, you guys, peace out, yo. I know this video was like an hour and 10, but even barely touching the surface of some of these archetypes, it still ended up being over an hour. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Took a lot of time out of my day just to make this list and then the video. I'm like, just I'm cool right now. Like, I'm cooling. So yeah, peace out, you guys. Ooh.